Welcome back to our series on LEGO Mindstorms in the laptop. In episode 3, we created this brick sound practice. In episode 4, we switched over to the iPad that showed a live view of our bottom corner, which was this, along with the EV3 in real life. Again, how to navigate the EV3 buttons, that was in a 4-part series on another part of our web page. So in episode 5, I just want to reiterate a few things and then show some other tips and tricks that might be useful to you. Just to reiterate the importance here right now, you cannot see my EV3, but you can see that it's connected, right? I have no motors or sensors plugged in, but you can take a look at it there. And we have 3 buttons: download, download and run selected. Usually you should do the download button. When I press download, you'll be able to hear it even though it's off screen. All right, that sound means that it has downloaded. Let's go back to the lobby, and we're not going to do a complete program, but just to give you some reiteration on a different tutorial, go to Basic, Straight Move. Once again, you have a video that can show you a preview. We'll go ahead and click Open. Okay, same sort of layout. All right, and just to remind you here, these blocks, you can mouse over to see what type of block it is. So it's not just a move steering block, it's a move steering block with 2 rotations. All right, these blue things are the things that you are supposed to change, and it should match up whatever you create over in your palette. That should match up with over here. Okay, so that should give you a good sense of how to go about going through the tutorials. There are a particular set of them that we find useful for new students, but you're welcome to try all different ones. Now, for entry-level First LEGO League, you're really only doing action and flow control. You can venture into these other things, but with the green and the orange blocks, the flow control blocks, you can do some very powerful but basic things with the sensors and motors. Now I'm just going to point out a few other things. Notice that when you click and drag the block off of a play block, it turns gray. I'm going to close my tutorial here. So this means nothing's going to happen. So when you when you click and drag, and it'll snap into place. Now let's just practice having a bunch of blocks. Okay. And let's say you had this sequence of blocks and you really liked it. So you could do click and then shift click, and then Command C, Command V for copy and paste. If you'd rather do the menu, all right, you can go up to Edit, Copy and Paste. All right, you can also Command A to select everything. All right, so if you wanted to delete everything all at once, all right, or copy and paste, remember you can always undo, Command Z, or Edit, Undo. If you've selected a whole bunch of blocks right now, you'll see that light blue. Just click in the white space to deselect. You can also use a selection rectangle. What does that mean? You click, hold the click, and drag, and whatever is touching or is encompassed by this rectangle, that'll be selected. Now, let's say you wanted only to pick the first and the third block. That's where that click and then shift click, then you can manipulate just those 2 blocks. So again, these are things that you will learn over time to make your work more efficient. So let's say we pick the middle block, we can delete it, and you see how that just collapsed on itself. Okay, so let's say you have 2 sequences of blocks, but they're not connected, but you don't want to have a whole line of code that you have to scroll back and forth. Rather, you kind of want this snake going on. So I'm going to select my blocks here, copy, paste, have another sequence here. So this is where we can use this connector. Okay, you need to mouse over. You'll see this little spool, like a spool of wires, and you click. You actually click and drag, and wait until it snaps like that. And then that will light up, meaning that the flow of instructions, it's going to follow this flow of instructions. Same thing here, click and drag. You can do that. Now, if you double click the left end, let me do that again, the front end, upstream, so to speak, it'll snap it into place like that. But if we go down to that same connection and double click the right end, it'll break it. So again, double click this first part, brings it up. All right, or double click the right part and it breaks it. And whenever you're doing this programming, all right, you can try to isolate. Let's say you're not sure what in the sequence of instructions is not working, so you can break off. All right, you preserve all of this work in gray, and you can do it piece by piece. Also, don't be shy in just starting over. Maybe you can save a previous version so you can have it as a backup, but sometimes starting from a blank slate is the best. And you can just pull a new play block like that. There is also, if you go up to help, show context help, this little box shows up. So this is really nice. As you press different blocks, it will have the help, right? So it's telling you what these blocks are, even when you change the modes. All right, so let's say ultrasonic sensor. Okay. And there are keyboard shortcuts. If you go up to help and then EV3 help, it's going to bring up a browser. Go to general keyboard shortcuts. And these are all different sorts of shortcuts that might help you out as you navigate. So if you go back here, if you want to put a bunch of comment blocks, just Command J. Looks like we have to exit out of this help mode. Okay, or maybe Command J has changed. Let's see, Command J. Oh, let's see, why is it not working? There we go. For whatever reason, Command J wasn't working, but now it's working. So you can put a bunch of different blocks. Okay, and again, you have a whole set of shortcuts that you can take a look at to see if it can help you in more efficient work. All right, the last thing that is a common issue is this wait for block, okay? And so we're just going to spend a little bit of time on this because it is something that is very useful to have, but often not understood. So right now we're on the ultrasonic sensor. It's the ultrasonic sensor plugged in port 4, so make sure you have the right port number here or the right thing plugged in real life. You'll see that it is measuring in centimeters. Now, this is the thing that gets students confused. It says compare type 4. Remember what we said earlier, that these numbers just refer to a particular thing. So it's a lot easier for a computer to think in numbers rather than equals, not equals, greater than or equal to, so on and so forth. So the 4 just means it's the shortcut to say, hey, computer, less than. That's what we want. Now, threshold value. Threshold value is a fancy way of saying a sort of limit or a sort of boundary. So if you think about being sick and you might have a fever or not, typically normal body temperature is 98.6, and usually the threshold, 100.4, anything 100.4 or over, a parent or a doctor might think that you have a fever. Or if you think the other end of the temperature scale, how cold is too cold? Well, the temperature that water typically freezes at is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you get to 32 degrees or colder, that would be the threshold value for something freezing. And so here in this case, the threshold value is 50 centimeters. So let's zoom out a little bit, and let's just say we would run our motors. We're going to run our motors forever, right? But it's not quite forever. It's saying you press start, it's going to run it, all right, straight, 50%, full power, both, all right, and it's going to keep running it until this block is true, all right, and it's saying it's waiting for the ultrasonic sensor to measure a value of less than 50 centimeters. So the ultrasonic sensor is always measuring the value. So let's say it's measuring 80, 80, 80, 80. So you can actually get your robot to say what it's measuring. It is a little bit annoying, but if you need to understand that the sensor is always measuring. So it's like 80, 80, 80, 80. And as you bring something close, it would go down to 70, 60. Maybe it's a little slower, 65, 50, 60, 55, 50. And then the moment it makes any measurement less than 50, then it's going to move to the next block. So let's say it was our move motors forward, but we actually want it to stop. Okay, so again, this is something that confuses people easily, but it is important to learn. One more thing while we're at it, let's say we are turning on, let's actually do the medium motor. All right, the medium motor is something this will happen often. In the kit bot, the medium motor controls the arm. Now, this says move your medium motor for 1 rotation. And let's say your next block was instead, okay, you move your medium motor, which is your arm, up, and then let's say you want to move it for like 3 seconds. And for whatever reason, you run the robot, and it seems that it's just stuck on this block. Well, what happens is usually 1 rotation of the medium motor, at least the way the basic bot is designed, it doesn't move the arm much. It's like 1 rotation, uh, full rotation of the motor would be spinning the arm more than it can physically do. And what's happening here is the motor has its own sensor. It's called an encoder. We covered this briefly in the how to use the EV3 brick episodes. So because the medium motor never senses that it goes around 1 full rotation, it never moves to this step. So you just have to be careful. That doesn't mean you can't do on for rotations. You just have to be able to step back and think, okay, well, what is the robot thinking? And there must be a reason why it's not moving to the next block. Okay, we have covered a lot. Hopefully, these 5 episodes give you a good start in how to learn. Again, comment blocks, super important. And then also battery life. So here you see this is a reflection of we're a bit less than half full on the battery. Please make sure to keep those batteries charged, and students never take the battery pack out. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you next time.